Welcome everybody to our webinar, Trust Your Data. Today we will focus on how to create business value out of two great technologies, Snowflake and Datavault Builder. My name is Grażyna Zyszczak. I'm the CEO and co-founder of InfiniteDATA Services. I represent 18 years of experience focused solely on business intelligence and the data warehousing area. So today I would like to share a bit my experience with you. And Petr,
hello.
Can you please,
My name's Peter. I'm working here primarily as pre-sales consultant at Datavault Builder. I have a long background in data warehousing. I did use different modeling styles and ended up with Datavault modeling. And I will present you in the second half how we use the Datavault Builder on Snowflake to create business value to get the right data.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. Today we are host of this webinar. If you have any questions, please write this on the chat available. Then later after the session, we are happy to answer all your questions and have a potentially nice discussion. Let me first introduce InfiniteDATA Services. In InfiniteDATA Services, we are solely focused on large data ecosystems. We are supporting our customers in designing, developing, building, and maintaining their data platforms. We deal with big brands, global organizations. We operate 24/7, mainly from two biggest offices. The first one is in Warsaw in Poland. This is where I'm speaking right now in. And the second biggest office is in Manila on Philippines. This enables us to mirror our customers' operational days, so we follow the sun. We have several years of experience and along hundreds of projects that we have delivered to our customers, starting from the business idea, business requirements, technology set selections, through POCs, proof of concepts, design, development, and maintenance. We are working with our customers to help them increase the value out of their data. And along all of this journey and many years of delivering hundreds of projects, we are always searching for best technologies. We are running proof of concept, we are testing, we are looking around and checking what's best for our big customers. And here we are together with Datavault Builder as an outcome of this kind of initiatives. So we believe that both Datavault Builder with their technology that we actually felt in love in, and the Snowflake, our second partner, we believe that the combination of these two can really bring a tremendous value to customers. Both Datavault Builder and InfiniteDATA are Snowflake partners. We have done together projects. We have proven the value of these free companies and free ideas and free vendors, each bringing a different value that we have proven that it's a working and a good solution for our customers. So today, Petr, who is the representative today, Datavault Builder, he will speak more about the technical details. So Petr, I hand it over to you. Please take the stage and share with us how you actually do this in Datavault.
So what is the problem we are looking at and why you have sometimes problems trusting your data? It is not that there is not enough data around. Usually today when we work with companies or with InfiniteDATA works with companies using our product, is we see there is a lot of data coming from different sources. The problem is more that the different sources don't hold the same information about the same objects in the real world. There is internal data from different IT systems, ERP system, logistics systems, some Excel files, CSV files, all over the place. You have external data that you can buy, that you maybe is publicly available to download to get like company data that you want to interact with, maybe some product data that you can get from your suppliers. But to access it in very good quality, this is the crucial part. So you need to bring it in one place, you need to give it meaning, and you need to update it in regular intervals. You need to present what the different topics are in your data, maybe who is using it, where is it coming from, if you look at GDPR topics. And all this kind of requirements lead to very, very difficult situation. And we try to solve that in the past already in bigger companies where we used many different tools for data modeling, then for ETL, another one. Then we had some database clients creating database tables, and we did profiling in another tool. Always some Excel sheets were involved. There was some manual coding. And already, if I just try to explain how this kind of projects work, and this is like based on real world projects we did in banking, we did in telecommunications back in the year 2000. It explains the complexity. And this is as well why still many projects in this field of data integration, data warehousing fail. They never go live because people are not able to manage all this complexity with very skilled people, with very rigid processes to bring them in place, to have a lot of technical support for the platforms, having tool specialists, and all of this made that in the conclusion, many people think the data warehousing is complex and expensive, but it shouldn't be. So we addressed it and said, we like to start with the business users and we want to make them bring them a very good experience. So we created one solution covering the full data integration, data warehouse process. And with the Datavault Builder, we're replacing up to 9 different tools. So what you have seen on the slide before with the many different tools that you would need to create such a solution, create all these interfaces, is integrated into one solution that you can deploy in a very simple way. And it gives you an advantage in many different areas. One is it gives you better analytical data quality. So delivering you the right information in good quality again and again. It lowers your costs and risk because we have a very standardized approach. So it's not that you need to reinvent how this kind of data integration works. We know it from many projects. The Datavault Builder is already on 3 different continents, now already 4, in 10 different countries active, with many clients using the tool, all with the same standardized approach. Yes, your company is special and it's about which kind of data we bring in, which kind of data processes we bring in, but the way of processing has become a commodity in the past 30 to 40 years. There is a pretty nice standardization on data modeling, how it should be done, on technical implementations. And yes, this is evolving. So we are following this and we are updating this process, but we're bringing it again in this one standardized product for you. So you don't need to follow it. You don't need to upgrade your systems and you don't need to update your patterns that you use. And a very important point is, and this is why we did start the Datavault Builder at all, is how long does it take if you get a new requirement, if you get a new data source, until you can use it in your reports and finally take the right decisions. Because all of this that we're doing here is not about just integrating data, storing it, creating history. In the end, it's about taking the right decision. And for taking the right decisions, you have to you need the right data, and you need to be able to trust your data because it's in a very good quality. And that's what the Datavault Builder solution is about. So what are we doing different than our competitors? And what we are offering is that we start with a business model. So we are not going there and say, we bring you some technology and we create you some scripts and we create you some code that nobody can understand in the business, but we go and create, or in fact, we are bringing the tool. InfiniteDATA does the workshops with you. Start asking, what is your business process? What are your core business concepts involved in this business processes? And start drawing a very, very simple model. And please don't confuse this with like the enterprise data model approach that we did in the past, where you model for months and months and you discuss all the definitions and then you start developing it. It's more about like doing a short workshop of 2, maybe 3 hours, talk about the first area, your first data domain, and develop a first version of your data model in this area, maybe with 10, 20, maximum of 30 core business concepts in this model. This is the agile approach, because we know that we can do that because by the Datavault modeling that we do in the background, when we do the physical implementation of your conceptual and logical data models, it will allow us, without creating additional cost, to develop step by step, to start very small, generate first output out of the box, deliver it right away, usually within a week, from really scratch, from starting your system until you have your first report ready with production ready data, and evolve it later. And this is really a big difference, because in previous attempts, if you did the third normal form warehouse, you needed to first create all your data model because changes were so expensive. And this is here really a completely different approach. So you model. And now is the question, why wouldn't you model like in data modeling tools like Irwin, like Power Designer that are on the market for years? The difference is that in the second that you're modeling here and adding stuff to your data model, in the background, the Datavault Builder translates it into working code, into a working implementation, into tangible output. This means that while you're being in the session with your business users, we can show you already what the result will look like. So we can give you examples and say, look, is this really the right business key? And it's not that we need to guess it. We can show you by clicking a button what the problems are with your definition. Is it correct? Are there any duplicates? Do you have maybe duplicate product keys, duplicate order numbers, all of these things that happens with real world data when we get it. And this is as well why BARC, that's a German analyst company, did evaluation, compared many different tools in the data domain, and came up with the finding that for these tasks, we are top in the category of time to market. This means how long does it take from taking a requirement to the output. And we are not talking here like from reducing this kind of time from weeks to a few days, but we're talking about reducing it really down to a few seconds to get your first results, and down to very few hours or days, depending on your deployment processes, to bring it into production. But the tool itself is not the limiting factor anymore. It's more the surrounding that you need to do a well development process. And the other thing that is different with the Datavault Builder, we don't stop in this model to code conversion step, which many other tools do as well, but we do everything around it. This means we start with automating the infrastructure. So how long does it take to spin up a new requirement, a new environment? We are taking care of providing interfaces for regression testing, for automated regression testing. We have a built-in deployment tool for smaller companies, a very simple one, and for bigger companies as well, a Git flow-based process. We are having operations built in, so there's a scheduler coming with the tool. You have REST APIs as well to use external schedulers. There is a data profiling tool in it to directly see how the data looks like. We have the possibility as well to generate documentation within the tool, but as well offer it to your reporting tools or other data cataloging tools to integrate the metadata we generate with your existing company data catalog. And as well, what we deliver you is the data lineage. So if you need to have GDPR requirements to show exactly where your data is coming from, that's built in. So it's really a whole package, instantly creating output, but as well, everything that needs to be done around is created automatically for you. One use case, how this can be used on Snowflake, is that we have a client that presents what they have done on YouTube. So if you want to watch this kind of example, we will send you as well the deck at the end that you can follow the link and watch the full length, how they have built using the Datavault Builder on Snowflake, one pipeline, which is doing all their loads, all their data integration, how it can really load tons of data. That's because of the performance we are using from Datavault Builder by sending our commands to the Snowflake database, how the maintenance work was reduced for them, and how they can really do agile implementations. As well, where are we top ranked by the BARC? It's in the category of customer satisfaction recommendation rate, and that's always compared against other competitors like Oracle, Microsoft tools, SAP tools. They as well top rated us in the support quality, and that's for sure related why we get such good recommendation rate. And why do we get good support quality rating is because if you have a very standardized product, it means that if there is any issue, we can reproduce it easily on our side, give you information, maybe what needs to be changed in your data model, but as well how to proceed if something needs to be improved in our product. And as mentioned, time to market and innovation power are the drivers for us to create the best solution on the market. For people where it's relevant, we are in the Datavault 2.0 certification process and hope to finish that by Q1 2023. So how does the Datavault Builder work together with Snowflake? And which tool is taking which part? So the Datavault Builder is a model-driven data warehouse automation tool where you work, you create your core business concepts, the blue boxes, you create relations, you define the attributes describing your core business concepts, and in real time, it is creating the physical implementation. And this physical implementation are tables, views, and load statements, which we send directly to Snowflake. And this code is optimized for the Snowflake platform. We do support as well other databases, which has other advantages. If you want to go like on-prem, there are more databases that we support, but here in the cloud world, we are taking Snowflake as an example, and I will show you exactly why, because they have some special functionality that they are very unique to offer. Second thing that we do is staging, and for the staging, we are able to connect to a lot of data sources through our built-in JDBC connectors. We can load files, we can connect to REST APIs, we can connect to Python scripts, we can connect to NoSQL technology like Kafka topics or Parquet files. But with Snowflake as well, there's the option that you can use the built-in Snowflake staging tools using external tables, and we can leverage this functionality by triggering the right extracts at the right point in time. And if we do that and use the built-in Snowflake staging mechanisms, all of the processing downstream happens on the database. The data never leaves Snowflake again, so the performance of this whole process is only dependent on the load warehouse that you configure in Snowflake. And this explains as well why we can be very cost effective for smaller clients, because they can select a small load warehouse. We are using it only in the moment we are loading data. The Datavault Builder turns off its connections or doesn't use them if we are not really working with the database. And you can scale it up really to billion of rows to load them in a few minutes if you need them by scaling up your load warehouse. So we stage the data as it is, and now comes the big difference. Instead of in a third normal form warehouse where you would apply the business rules here while loading the data, and you would maybe need to reload the data if you figure out that your business rules are maybe not defined the right way or not implemented the right way. Here we have moved, based on the Data Vault methodology, the business rules downstream in the process. So we stage the data as it is, we create history. And here it is important to mention that we are not just creating normal SD type 2 history, but as our tool is used as well in banking, insurance business, and other financial applications, we allow as well to do bitemporal loads. So if you have already external timeline, like a posting date in banking, we can take that and we store a fully auditable history in your core, including capture of redeliveries, corrections of data. So you don't need to take care of all this bitemporal stuff. This is automatically stored by us if you define the external timeline while loading. After you have persisted and historized your data, the next step is that you want to select from your data model all the data that needs to be output. And yes, in the past, it was very often in a dimensional format. And this is still the target format for many tools like Power BI, Tableau, or Qlik. But we have as well other requirements, sometimes like coming from tools like SAP Business Objects or Cognos, where they say, no, we want to output more third normal form model. And this is possible because Datavault is more normalized, it's a little bit hyper-normalized. You can derive deterministically a third normal form model from it. So for the people where this is important, if the question is, do we store data like this? No, because we believe the Datavault methodology is more flexible, it is more agile, it allows you lower maintenance costs, but it doesn't mean that we can't present it in the format as you like it. And usually this is the right approach to go, because then you're very flexible and you get the third normal form output. Next thing is what we have more and more often is when we talk about machine learning and AI models, that people want to have flat tables, that they want to denormalize everything down to the finest grain. And that's possible as well here. You can go through your model because you created here all the relations. You can just click through the different paths, select the attributes from the different levels, and it will automatically create you the level denormalized down to the level that you need it. And if you're in a bigger organization and you want to go for data mesh implementations, that's possible as well. We have a multi-tenancy option in the Datavault Builder where you can use single instances of the Datavault Builder in your different data domains, and it will allow you to create data products, all visually. On top, you're completely free to put in your business rules using SQL code, and then you have the option to output the data directly, sending it to the data marts. That makes you very, very agile and flexible and very low maintenance costs. But there are two reasons why you don't want to do that. One is performance. That's usually not the case on Snowflake. For many, many entities, we can output the data really just through our virtual layers, but it can be for auditability. If you calculate something like a lifetime value of a client or some credit scoring that you need to historize it for auditability, then you can turn the switch, and instead of outputting the data directly, you can store it back into your core and it becomes part of your model. The interface to your recipients is through the Snowflake database. So as long as you are a reporting tool or your application is able to connect through Snowflake, either by the JDBC driver, the Python interface, or any other means that Snowflake is offering, then you can connect to the data we are creating, because that's controlled directly on the database level. So what is as well part of our approach? In the past, when I started in data warehousing, when we wanted to create a data flow, here represented as water flow, we started coding. We wrote some lines of code, maybe C, later on C, C++. And 2 years later, we figured out we need to change it. There needs to be like some more logging. So we changed the design, and over time it evolved. Maybe there was a new database version every second year, and we improved our design again and again. So people came up with the question and said, why are there no tools doing that? Why do we need to code and reinvent the wheel in every company that we are? And people came up using ETL tools, but it turned out it is just the same with point and click. We never asked, why are we doing stuff? It was still moving data from A to B in a very imperative way, where we said, okay, we need to move it. And the ETL tool doesn't understand why it is moving the data. It's just moving the data. So that is the difference. What we do in automation, we ask why. So maybe here you want to wash your hands. And from that, over time, if you have more knowledge, you can determine a new implementation of what you want to do. And here, the requirements is our data model. Now, in many automation tools, you would write these patterns, how you want to create the different implementations, and this will cost you time, it will cost you maintenance, trouble, and you don't just need to write the new patterns if something new comes out, but as well the migration scripts to improve your existing solution that is already there because it contains data, to update it. And that's the difference with the Datavault Builder. To protect your initial investment in this modeling exercise, we deliver the patterns with it, we deliver you updates, and we deliver you the update scripts as well for your existing data structures. And this is really a big protection of your investment that you're doing into your data warehouse. And as I mentioned before, it was maybe every second year that maybe SQL Server that we support as well was being updated. There was a new version with Snowflake. These changes come in sometimes every 3 months. Maybe a new index type that is beneficial for you. Or maybe they improved something in the joint performance if you use the right syntax, stuff like that. So we are delivering again and again new pattern updates as well. Sometimes they fix maybe some issues that they had, so you need to adapt your patterns to take advantage of it. And this is what we deliver for you, so you don't need to react if your Snowflake database is updated automatically. So what are the different modules that we're covering with the Datavault Builder? It is the model to code generation part, but it is two-way. So this is a big difference to other tools. If you change the technical implementation, we will automatically notice that and update your data model. And this solves one of the biggest problems of automation approaches in the past, because in the beginning, usually they run very well. You generate, you create your model, you generate your code, and everyone is happy. But at some point, Sunday afternoon, you have a production incident. Some of your developer goes in and changes production code, and he needs to do that. It is perfectly justified process, but the problem is on Sunday afternoon, he doesn't go there and changes the model, but he fixes it directly in the code. The next time you deploy the model, it's either overwritten or you detect that there is a clash, you need to reconcile this. And this doesn't happen in the Datavault Builder by automatically converting back your code into the model. Additionally, we already mentioned we are updating the physical implementation of the objects over time, if this is beneficial for you. On top of it, we automate infrastructure. The whole tool is delivered as so-called Docker containers, so you can run it on-prem or in the cloud. Usually when we have Snowflake as a target platform, Datavault Builder is running in the cloud, but not always. Sometimes people have as well on-prem data sources, and they want to push the data to Snowflake, so they can use the Datavault Builder locally in your data center, connect to the data sources, and push then the data upstream into the cloud to Snowflake. Next thing that we cover is we have REST APIs for automated regression testing, so you can completely automatically set up a new environment. You can load your data model that you want to test. You can run test jobs. You can get the results all through REST API. So if you have any tools like Tosca Quality Center, Postman, JUnit, JMeter, then you can use them to automate your testing through REST calls. The next step is deployment. In the Datavault Builder, when we're working in real time with the database, we are not doing that on a production database. We are doing this in your integrated dev environment or even in a sandbox. I will cover this in a minute. So we need to deploy the changes between the different environments. And for smaller companies, this can mean that you can compare like your development, your test machine, or your test machine and your production machine. It will calculate the differences. It lets you select what you want to deploy and either deploy it directly if you have the permission and this is your process, or write your deployment script. In bigger companies, you will have network segregation, so you can as well download the models from the different environments, compare them offline, stuff like that. And more importantly, you can follow a Git flow based process. And I will cover this a little bit later. It means, and this is very unique to Datavault Builder, there are not many tools out there where you can do that. You can branch and merge your data models, so you can do really proper distributed development. The next step is, if you get tired of manual deployments, you can automate it, and this is necessary because most of our clients are now deploying like in a weekly cycle, so you don't want to do all of this manually, so there are REST API as well to automate your deployments. If you deployed everything to your test system, UIT system, or even production, then you want to run it automatically, so there's a built-in scheduler. It will, based on the model, calculate which kind of jobs need to run. It will parallelize all these loads up to the level that you define. It will log all the results. And again, it offers REST APIs if you have an existing enterprise scheduler that you want to continue using. Next step is, if you want to achieve high availability for reading the data and for loading the data, we can show you the different patterns. What I don't have on this slide are things like the data lineage generation, the documentation that happens, and the data profiling module, which I will show in the demo part in the tool itself. So why did we start the Datavault Builder at all? Is we wanted to become agile in the data warehousing domain. And we weren't with classical to normal form modeling, but as well when we decided for Datavault modeling, still the tooling was missing for us to start the development of a feature later and deploy it earlier. And this is for me the most important test. If you evaluate any agile solution, always look at, can you really change the order of the deployment of the features or stories that you're developing? And this works mainly if you're following the Git flow standard, the Git flow process. This means that you need to have an option to have the state of your data warehouse, including all the entities, all the loads, in a format which works perfectly well with Git. And we have achieved that by splitting up our model description in many different small files that are human readable, that are optimized for Git, so you can really branch a model, work on it, change it. If you're happy, you put it back, you ask for a pull request for your colleagues to review it and to merge it back into your integrated dev environment. By this process, it integrates very well with Jira software, so you can really start like capturing your business requirement in Jira software. You can then create the branches in Bitbucket or GitHub and work on this, and then your model changes will be linked at the end back to your requirement, which gives you a very nice documentation. If 2 years later you need to show to an auditor what happened exactly on which date. So how do we work together with Snowflake? Because the classical approach of automation is that you would work with a tool against a repository, and from the repository, which is pressing a button, generate code for Snowflake. But with the Datavault Builder, we do a real-time connection. This means as soon as you start modeling here and you add some objects to your data model, they will be created in the same second in your Snowflake database. And if you change something in your Snowflake database, like remove a hub table from your physical implementation, this object will be removed as well from your data model. This means there is no discrepancy anymore between what should be there and what is there. It's in fact the same. Now, some people get shocked and say, but hey, how crazy is that you change my production system in real time? No, we don't. You would do that for sure, at least in your development system, if you have like development, test, and production. But with Snowflake, it's very simple as well to use sandboxes to work locally there, to do very controlled changes that every developer or every feature can be developed in a single environment. So adding an object to the canvas means it's created in the same second in the database, and you can immediately use it, you can query it, you can show to your business users what the result will be. So how does it work now with this distributed development thing that I mentioned several times on Snowflake? Let's assume that we have 2 developers and they got assigned 2 parts of the data model they need to develop. So they go to your integrated dev environment. They use a zero copy clone to create their own environment. And because Datavault Builder has no separate metadata repository, by cloning the database, it clones not only the structure, it doesn't clone only the data if you want it, but it clones as well all the metadata which are attached directly to this object. So he clones it, he starts implementing here all the object that he needs to. And because Git is following exactly which kind of version he did copy, because he branches off the integrated dev branch in Git as well when creating the clone, we will know when merging back what was added and what was changed exactly by this developer. Second developer can start later, does the same thing. He clones the database, he creates his own branch in Git, he develops his feature. And now it doesn't matter who deploys first back to the integrated dev environment. If he's finished first, he does it, and it's working because the whole process is set up by the Datavault Builder software that it works with Git flow. This means after deploying all these changes into your integrated dev environment, even you had here like some parts which were not connected, but they had some shared objects in it. In the integrated environment, automatically everything comes together and you have now one integrated model that you can test, run. It's documented, you have data lineage for everything ready. And this special part You can realize it with other databases, but you have a lot of manual work and you have more costs. Why? By creating sandboxes, by using the zero copy cloning feature, it means it's very fast, it's very simple by a simple command, and you don't pay extra for the data you're cloning. You just pay then for the modifications you do within your feature development, but still you can test it with the full data set, which was not possible in the past. For everything we have in the tool, there are API integrations. And what I would do is now jump off into a live Datavault Builder environment just to show you how the tool looks like, that you can imagine now how the features that I described here in the PowerPoint slide look in the real world. So this is here our core part. If we go back to our data layers that we know where we are now here in the core part, and that's where we start first with our model-driven approach. And here, our partners like InfiniteDATA will start with you talking about your business. It will ask, what is the main business process? What are the relations of these objects? And adding this kind of blue boxes to your canvas. These are core business concepts. While you're in the workshop, it's very simple to add here new objects, capture definitions, and this is everything that you need. And already in the second that I typed in the stuff in the background on Snowflake, the table was created and is ready to hold your data. And this is how we work. This means as soon as we define a data load, we can load it immediately, we can test it, and everything happens in real time. After a modeling session of 2, maybe 3 hours, where you modeled your first bits of the most interesting process where you want to start, you go to step 2, which is then a more data-driven perspective. Because this data model is bigger, we can just search for certain things. We can search for subject areas, which you would maybe call data domains today. You have the possibility here as well to bookmark your stuff, to filter your stuff, to really show what it is about, but still, by reducing it to a minimum, it stays in a format where it's simple to talk to business users and explain them what we are doing. So let's switch to step 2. We go to the staging area, and here we have different source connectors, and we can add here new connections. We have a full list already of different connectors. If there are any new JDBC connectors that our customers want to have added, we add them usually in the next release, which is quite common, at least once a month. We're releasing new versions of the Datavault Builder. And you can stage the data here. And you can do full load. You can load as well only the changes since yesterday, so delta loading. You can connect here to CDC streams if you have like Golden Gate, or if you have Click Replicate or SQL Server, change data capture. We will understand that the data is coming from a CDC tool, that it has already a timeline, and we will use this external timeline to load the data into the data vault, take care of the bitemporality. So if you have as well external posting dates in banking, that is fine, that is covered automatically. So after we have staged the data, which can be directly triggered here, we go to the data viewer and we can have a look at the data. So let's look just at the table that we have seen in staging. And in here, we can do the standard aggregations we usually do. If we look at data the first time, visualize it as well, maybe as a tree map, understand what is in there, give first feedback to the business users. If we already see that they required stuff that is not matching the data, that we can already stop here and maybe say, hey, are you sure that your requirements are correct? Or do we get the wrong data? Have we understood something the wrong way? After understanding the data, the next step is to create a connection here and to look for the correct business key. And here, this is a supported process, so I can do that. I just need to add here some new load. And I will add this by complete new source. It's a CSV file source that I will use here. The system already exists. Let's take some other name. And let's now select the data that we want to stage. and it's reading all the metadata that is available. As these are CSV files, we don't have any comments or any data types, but if these are database connections, it would all automatically process them and load them here into our staging view. And here we see the direct interaction with the database. It will create the table, it will create the ETL flow, and it can load the data immediately. This means that a few seconds later, the data will be there. We can go to the next step and now link the staging table into our core. And here we select the business key. And usually this is the last step where we really need the business user involved, because there are many candidate keys in the data set. So we really ask you from a business perspective, what is the business key now of a flight as example? And they will maybe say that it could be the flight number, it could be the date. So we add these two parts of the key. We can concatenate keys. And here, this is an important feature. We have a business key checker. So we just click on this button and it shows us that our assumption about the data was wrong, that there are still duplicates, how many duplicates are there. It shows us where the problem is. Just visually, I see that there are different carrier codes for the same key that I selected. And this helps us to get our data model right. And usually if we did this in the past and we didn't work with the data, the problem was that we realized it as well, but much later in the step, maybe hours later, even sometimes days later, and we needed to redesign whole sections. And here, before we go on, and this is the Agile ID, fail fast. And this is one of these fails, because we see already here that this is not working. So we can go back to the business user, and while he's maybe on the phone in a Zoom call or on a Teams call talking to us, we can show him what happens if we add this unique carrier code, because he explains us, yes, that's fine, that is code sharing, he just forgot about it. So we get down to the next data problem, and we see that here WN, which is Southwestern Airlines, they have maybe some issues that they're reusing the flight number. So we talk to them, they explain us what they are doing. There's a perfect valid business use case for that. So we need to add as well the origin airport. And these are already 2 or 3 small iterations that we did now before generating now the final solution. So we don't do any errors, and everything which is based on top of this assumption is already validated. I'm skipping now a lot of options because we just do a small demo, and now already it creates all the loads for this object, which is our core business concept on the database, a hub. It is creating a satellite, which will hold the attributes about this core business concept, and we can start loading right away. So we have a production-ready implementation into our core warehouse, including historization, if there would be external timeline taken care of by temporality and everything. And we can have a look at the data. It's already there. It's in your Snowflake database, and you can query it here, or you could go directly to your Snowflake database with your preferred database client and have a look at it. The same is valid here for the satellite. We can load it, and as the tool is standardized, it knows that it needs to go back to the staging area. It needs to add the columns that for the technical hash key, for the business key. It will change the ETL flow automatically. So this is stuff that you would need to do manually if you are managing like your pipelines yourself. And we are not happy yet, because if we work agile, we want to create tangible output. So we need to create an interface, and the interface creation is here as well, created visually. So we select the grain. This is more like how Kimball was speaking about data. We select our new satellite that we selected. We can create more than one interface per grain, because maybe we have different recipients like standard reporting, dashboarding, legal reporting, and data scientists. We select the time perspective. And here already I can say, do I want to have already, as of now, output, just the latest information about my keys? Or do I want to have the full history with STD type 2, with load time and load time end, create it completely automatic, even when joining different data sources together? It will do all this pit logic handling that it's necessary in the background, and you don't need to do anything except of defining that you wanted this kind of output. So let's select just the as of now view for a first version. And now we can visually select the different columns we want to select. And as this is a virtual layer in the first version, it can be materialized later, immediately after creating the interface, we can see what the output will be, what the consumer will receive. So we see maybe that there's something missing, we change that. Let's test that again and say, okay, we're happy. So the only last thing that I need to do, because in the first version, I don't want to create any business rules. I just publish that and I'm done. And this is really the fastest way to go through the Datavault Builder and create a production ready pipeline with historization, with output, with data lineage, which was created in the background. So we can filter it down to what we just worked on, which is here the source system, the staging table, the elements that are loaded like the satellite, the output, denormalization view, and the elements which are then output. This is one visualization. If you want to have another one, that's fine. All of this metadata is available as Vue and as REST API for you to create whatever visualization you want. On top of it, you can load it directly into the Tableau or Click report and make it available to your business users. That's perfectly fine. As well, on the operations side, in the background, automatically a job was created. It can be run manually, it can be scheduled in here, or it can be triggered through a REST API from external scheduling tools. And it will run everything in the right order. It will parallelize everything within layers, between layers, so you don't need to take care of what to do to schedule it. Documentation can be generated. Let's do this to see how long it takes. And this here is not documentation that is theoretical. This is based on your real world implementation. So if I would go there and I would delete one of the hubs, I just need to wait a few minutes or resync my cache manually, and it will produce you again the correct documentation as it is on the system. So if you ever had an audit, you don't need to sweat anymore that this stuff is not matching, because you know if something is in here, it's in the database. And the last step would be to deploy your stuff. And here, if I'm able to click as well for that, for every step you have a REST API, so you can automate completely your CI/CD workflow to do everything here manually. You can compare directly different environments, or you can export your data model, including your metadata and your load definitions, into this format that you can check into your Git repository. So this was a very, very short presentation of the different functions. And as you mentioned, as you probably realized, we didn't cover it here in this live demonstration all of this functionality. We were mainly working here. I just showed you shortly that there is a deployment option. I showed you that there is operations, but there's lots of more things that we can't show in such short demonstration. So if you're really interested, please sign up for a personalized webcast where InfiniteDATA together with us can show you exactly how the Datavault Builder could benefit your situation and your challenges that you have in your data. So let's go to the question and answer section. And you have in Zoom yourself a button called Q&A, and you can put in questions there, and we will see them and we can answer them live here. The one question is if there is a way of control how the code is generated. The answer is generally no. We have ways of so-called pre and post hooks that you could use, but nobody's using them because the standard way of changing what it is doing, if you think that there is a better way to perform certain tasks, is to talk to us, explain what your idea is. We will test it. We have a few thousand regression tests to run through the whole system, see how changes impact the whole system, and we'll give you feedback either if it's beneficial or not. And if it's beneficial, we will implement it in the standard patterns and redistribute it with updates to all the clients. Still, generally, if you're working on other databases, you could do your own indexing, stuff like that, like on the physical level, do changes. We allow that as long as it's not touching the basic rules of like naming objects. But this is kind of work that is very seldom necessary on Snowflake databases because they are doing a lot of this kind of optimizations themselves for you. One more question is, are we generating streams and tasks on Snowflake? No, we are generating pure SQL on the fly while executing the different loads. The background is that we can react like this to changes in the data. Example, if one of your source system now removes a column for whatever reason, we wouldn't fail the load, but we would adapt the load statement on the fly. We would raise a warning in the log file saying, hey, something changed, you need to probably manually look at it, but still we can continue loading the data that is there, stuff like that. If some source systems take longer than others, we can balance that, we can do all the parallelization. That's why we're really controlling the SQL at the point in time that is executed. Is there a column level lineage? Good question. Not yet. It will be beginning of next year. That's one of the features that is right now in the development pipeline and should be released hopefully in one of the first releases in 2023. Now there's one question, does Datavault Builder handle all the possible Datavault 2.0 object types? And then there's a long list. That would be a longer answer. I keep it short. We wouldn't aim for the Datavault 2.0 certification if we wouldn't fulfill everything that is necessary. So you will see it then by the certification being published, what we cover and everything. Otherwise, it would be a longer answer. But one question is good. How do we handle the reference data? And we handle the reference data here normally in the data model by doing a disconnected object with a satellite. Why? Because we needed to learn it the hard way. When we create the reference table without history, it happened for some clients that somebody changed, like the Excel, which was loaded in the reference table, the reports changed, and nobody was able to reproduce the data from the last day. So now we use usually a hub satellite combination to store reference data, and we create for you as of now view on top of it, so you don't need to query it for the history, but still, if there would be any issue on some day, you can still look at the full history and get the explanation what changed in the last day. Good. Do we have any questions as well for InfiniteDATA? Where are you present geographically? That would be an interesting question. Yes.
Yeah, so answering the question, we are operating globally. So it actually doesn't matter where our customers are located. But as I said, our two main offices are in Poland and on Philippines. So we truly follow the sun and really work in a virtualized environment. So this question actually is really easy to answer because we can address questions and challenges from all over the world.
So one more question, and then if we join the reference table through a link, it depends on the cardinality and the granularity of the reference table. But if you have really billion of rows in your transaction tables, usually we don't express the relation directly in the model. Otherwise, the link to the reference table would have the same granularity as the process you're linking from. It's as well many billion of rows. So it can be that sometimes we are just doing the lookup in the business rules section on the fly while outputting the data, because usually in the reference table, we have a few rows that can be loaded easily by Snowflake in the memory and just applied on the way out virtually to the output. Good. Then I thank you for all the interesting questions. I'm as well happy that InfiniteDATA was here on the call with us, because we worked on them on financial industries project that I'm very happy that we were able to work with them, broad understanding of the business processes of the clients. And as we heard as well, they have 24-hour support. They can cover problems globally. So if you have like clients, or if you are located in different locations around the globe, they can support you as well in different time zones, which is really cool. So thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for the joint effort. Thank you, Peter, for the interesting presentation. Yeah.
And looking forward to some of you, hopefully meeting you on personalized as well webcasts, talking about your data, going more into detail, what you want to cover, what are your challenges, and how we cover them. I thank you a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.